This is part three of our series on anatomy of a tech failure. And this is lessons learned from a technology company that really didn't make it. They didn't make it through the technology transfer they were experiencing, uh, not transfer, the transition. Welcome to my blooper reel. They didn't make it through the technology transition that they were experiencing. And it's relevant to me, and I think relevant for you, given everything that's happening with artificial intelligence and the huge tech wave that we are living in right now. It's another time of transition. So, while looking at what has been successful for people is hugely important, also looking at what didn't work is also very important. And in part three, this is something that was a surprising lesson for me at the time. So, this was a company who had dominated in their market for a couple of decades. There was a shift in technology to newer tech, which they were not coming along on. They didn't see it as a threat. And the management team was not really on board with the same objectives. So then this is the essence of the lesson. One of the things, quick story, one of the things that they did, and I sat in on a post discussion of this, was one of their critical suppliers, the critical supplier for the technology that they were working with, they decided to acquire. It was a small company. They had an extremely inefficient manufacturing process. And part of the challenge with that was they were very much of the mindset that, look, we're doing it the best way it can possibly be done. If there were a better way to do it, we would already be doing it. So don't talk to us about making improvements. They had a 60% scrap rate on what they were producing for us at the time. Think about that. 2 out of every 3 is bad. Got to throw it away, drop it in the scrap heap. You can't use it. So that was how I was involved, because my mission with that company was to fix things like that. You go, look, we can't live with this. Here's how we make it better. Here's how we learn and improve. They would not engage in that conversation because I didn't have the technical expertise, didn't have the engineering background, didn't have the educational degrees, didn't have the industry stickers, or as a friend of mine says, look at my ribbons, right? Didn't have all of that stuff. So there was one excuse after another why there wasn't any reason for us to have a conversation, because I couldn't possibly know what I was talking about. All I wanted to do was accelerate their learning so that we could get into an affordable production run. And this was the conversation we're having after they had already acquired this company. So see the problem there? Not only had the decision already been made, but the deal was already done. They were acquired. Money had changed hands. Contracts were not only inked, but now being enforced. Then this was part of the larger problem of the executive team not being on the same page. The CEO is setting out one set of goals. The CFO is mostly working with that. The chief of operations, they had a VP of operations rather than a COO. So the VP of operations, not having any of it. He's running his own agenda. Person responsible for suppliers is likely might have surmised or guessed, given what was done with the decision to acquire this extremely poorly performing company, running a different agenda. And they were all looking for hero time. They were doing what they thought was going to fix it, and they were going to be the hero that saved the day. The lesson I got was from seeing the fear in the eyes of the employees. So there were a lot of employees that had been with the company for all or a major part of this run they'd had as a tech leader, as a market leader. And their whole thing was, what are we going to do now? You know, if I lose my job, where am I going to go? 20, 30 years into their career, 15 years into their career. How are they going to find another job? It was a down economy. Lots of companies were laying off, which was one of the excuses that some of the executives at this company were using. They go, it's just a bad economy. That's why we're not performing so well, even though they were performing dramatically worse than the economy. So to wrap this up and to not make a short story too much longer, they did not make it. I had a lot of conversations with employees before, and to be honest, clarity here, I left before the company completely failed. I'll come back to that in just a second. The thing that left me with was looking at the fear in the eyes of the employees that didn't have any idea what they were going to do. They're anchored in the local community, moving out of state, which a lot of younger, the less than 15 years in their career, less than 10 years in their career, a lot of the younger folks at that time were doing. They were picking up jobs in other parts of California. This was in Southern California, or moving out of state altogether into one of the new technology opportunities, one of the other parts of the country, like Dallas, Austin, on the East Coast, over by Research Triangle, Charlotte, North Carolina, around Massachusetts, around MIT, where there were technology hubs. Some of the revitalizing Midwest, where new technology was beginning to take hold and replace, offer new opportunities in the Rust Belt. So there was some of that. They couldn't do that. And I looked at that, and that's what left me with, was seeing that fear and knowing, you know what, as a leader here, I'm responsible. I'm responsible for these folks. I'm responsible for their lives. I'm responsible for being part of the team that is making it happen so the company succeeds in order to serve our customers, our clients, and the employees. Right? So it was a very, very difficult. It was very emotionally challenging. Felt a lot of weight around that. And it was a massive leadership lesson for me. Going, you know what? I got to look these people in the eye and be accountable. Shoot straight with them, but still, about the situation, but at the same time, work with them on how can we make this better. Work with them, helping them, put them in a position in some cases where if they did lose their job, here's the options that they had, which built some good relationships, helped, but ultimately didn't save the company. What ultimately happened was the board ownership decided to sell the company. And there were a couple of buyers that were ready to go because this company had been putting scientific equipment that they were selling, and they had a huge installed base of equipment. In other words, they had a lot of long-term clients around the world that had very, very lucrative maintenance contracts. So a company that specialized in that type of business, in the maintenance of equipment, the maintenance of scientific equipment, bought the company for the value of those contracts, those maintenance contracts, and laid everybody off except for a skeleton crew because they stopped producing. They weren't making any new ones. They were just fixing and serving the old ones. And it was very profitable for them to do that. They were very good at it. Unfortunately, several hundred more people ended up on the street. So this is a company that went from 1,100 people at its peak to, I believe the final number was 50 or less that actually still had jobs after the company was sold to this maintenance contract group. And it's really unfortunate. And that stung. It's like, oh man, what could I have done different to influence this? What could I have done better? And that's my question for you. Are you accepting that accountability as a business owner, as an executive, a leader? And are you reviewing what you're doing on a regular basis and doing it with mentors and colleagues that can shoot straight with you and can point out blind spots and where you might be deluding yourself, and also bringing resources and recommendations to the table as well so that you can perform that duty, so you can do your best and then some to serve your employees, your team, and your clients, both, because we have responsibility in both directions. Also to our suppliers, they depend on us as well. So that's the third lesson. This is part 3 of 3 from Anatomy of a Tech Failure. Because if the executive team had all been on the same page, had all been rowing in the same direction, what might have happened? As opposed to running their own agendas, which is largely what was happening. And maybe far more than 50 people would have still had jobs. Maybe that company would still be in Southern California. And it was an engineering and manufacturing company, which, depending on whose statistics you look at, every one of those jobs at a company like that supports another 4 to 7 jobs in the larger community. So that was a big hit to lose over 1,000 jobs like that. So that means 5,000 jobs were affected or more, just at a minimum, plus the families of those people that worked those jobs. So That's another 5 people. So there's like 15,000 people affected by that company's failure at a minimum. And those were high paying technical jobs, so they were not being replaced. Right? Those people that stayed, that most of those people ended up taking jobs that were a significant cut. So that's lesson 3. Review what you're doing. Do your after action reviews, as we call them, borrowing from our friends in the military. Learn, accept that accountability, surround yourself with people that can help you find a path forward and stay connected to reality as opposed to what you think you would like to have happening. Thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf. We missed the sunset here in the background. Fog's rolling in. It's a beautiful day, beautiful sunset. Glad you're part of the conversation, and I look forward to seeing you on the trail.